Hello everyone, I'm Denise Love, and today I want to share with you a new painting tutorial. We'll be doing some yummy, intuitive paintings that I think you're going to love to create. These are fun for relaxing you from expectations, discovering new techniques, and I can't tell you how many times painting in this way has inspired bigger pieces and new classes. I hope you enjoy today's painting practice, and I can't wait to see what you're creating. So let's get started. Let's take a look at the supplies I'll be using in this video today. So we're going to be making this yummy set of 4 intuitive paintings. I'll show you how I make these because they're so gorgeous. I know you're going to love to try this. So I will be using the Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolors in the Art Nouveau set. This set's been super popular, and every time I put a video out using them, they tend to sell out. So just keep your eyes open. These are very pretty. You can use any watercolors you want to substitute for doing this, because more so than the watercolor, it's the techniques in there that get you the looks. So that's what I'll be using. I've got a couple art sponges, which is basically just a round art sponge that I have cut into 4s, and I use these as my little stencil sponges, so I've got some of those. I am going to be using some fusion paints, which are some home decor milk paint type paints, and I just like the colors and I wanted to try them out. I found them at the antique market. One of these is Gray Champness. The other one, that name is tore off, so I'm not sure what it is, but it's a really pretty dark teal color. I'm also going to be using my Kuretake Mica Gold ink and paste, my very favorite gold because it's so brilliant and beautiful and shiny. I've got some dip pens here that I can do some mark making and some writing with, so I've got some of those. And this gold one here that everybody asks about is my Kakamori brass nib. It is a little bit more expensive, but it lets you draw in circles and do other shapes. That's why I love it, and it's my very favorite, so the cost was worth it. But you can also just use a regular dip pen to write with, or you can use Posca pens or markers or graphite pencil. You can substitute any of these. I just happen to be showing you some of my favorites today. I'm also using this Winsor Newton No. 4 bamboo brush, which has become I'm obsessed with these. They're Chinese calligraphy kind of paint brushes, and they're meant to be used up and down so that you're drawing the characters, but I use it to smush paint around and get this just amazing coverage and unpredictability with it. It's a bit like painting with a dog tail. But I love it. I've also got some stencils here that I'll be using. These are some Stencil Girl stencils. I've got Stencil 376 and Stencil 227. These are some of my favorites. I use these over and over. I also have a piece of Punchinello, which is the stuff they make sequins out of. So it's a piece of metal mesh. You can get this pretty readily on Amazon or eBay or Etsy. It's pretty easy to get, and it's my very favorite. And this comes in a couple different sizes. This is a very small circle size that I've got there. I'm also going to be using cold press 140-pound watercolor paper for my projects today. This works particularly good on just about any paper you want it to experiment on, so definitely play with your papers and see what you get. And then I think that's all that I throw at you here in class today, so let's get started. So I thought today we could do a yummy intuitive painting, which is one of my favorite ways to paint. And I love painting and doing things like, once you figure out what you really love to do more of that. I love to peel tape. I love to kind of intuitive paint without a direction or a specific outcome in mind. And then I love to peel a tape and be like pleasantly surprised with what I got. So once you figure out some of these things that you love, what makes you the happiest when you're sitting at your art table, do more of that. So I thought I'd share with you how I do some intuitive painting. So I've already got my paper taped down, and I'm using the Canson Heritage 140 pound cold press watercolor paper, but you could substitute any cold press paper for this type technique. I like this paper. I like the way it reacts to the watercolor paint and the way that it catches the paint when I'm using my bamboo brush. So I'm gonna go ahead and use what my favorite paper is, but also use a lot of the Canson XL pad paper, which is a really good kind of medium grade paper that I like to use. So we're going to be using that. I have a bamboo brush. This is my Winsor Newton Series 150 or 160. Maybe that says 15G. I don't know. This is a Winsor Newton number 4 bamboo brush, and I'm going to be playing in my Kuretake Gensai Tambi watercolors in the Art Nouveau colors, which I showed you in my art haul, which you may find this hard to find, because I think when everybody watched that art haul, they're like, ooh, we love that too, and they went and bought them. So it could be out of stock depending on when you watch this, but trust me, those totally worth waiting for and ordering and getting. And I'm kind of feeling perhaps that I want to work in a blue-green color palette today. I've got these little colors that I have swatched out, so I'm going to set those behind me so I can kind of see. Just activating those with some water. And now let's start painting. So I like a mop brush, I like a fan brush, and I like this bamboo brush. Those are my favorite things to paint with. Today I'm kind of feeling like the bamboo, so I'm going to use this real pretty blue out here to start with, and then we'll go from there. And I'm going to treat this like one big piece of paper and paint on the whole thing as if it were not taped off. And I like doing that because now I can kind of get a whole series. I may love all of them, I may love none of them, but it'll kind of be like a cohesive set where one piece kind of started and kept going. And then when we peel the tape, hopefully we'll have 4 things that we kind of love. So what I really love about the bamboo brush, and you can kind of see as I'm just adding a little bit of watercolor to here, is it's very uncontrollable. These are Chinese calligraphy brushes, so they're usually held like straight up and down, and letters are made that way, and the tip is used, whereas I'm using it to the side. I'm scrubbing it along the paper. It's very unpredictable. It's a little bit like painting with a puppy dog tail, but I love it. Let me get a little scrap piece of paper here, because I want to see what this color, look at that color, look at that color. Whoa! Let's use that one. Okay, so this is number 506, and we're just going to come on here and add that on there. I'm not worried about composition. You'll see I'm talking and just kind of adding that paint to the paper. Another one of my very favorite things to do with art is to cut it up. So I have no qualms at all about painting something and then thinking, oh, I didn't like that. Let's cut it up, or use it as a collage piece, or use it in something else and just cut away. And you can usually definitely find bits and pieces that you love cutting things up. Oh, I'm loving this one and maybe this one. See, if you do like 4, then if you have 1 or 2 you don't love, that's okay, because you love all the others. So let's see. Okay, so I've got, let's just put this here. I've got those 2 colors on the paper. I feel like maybe 1 extra something. So do we want this? Let's see. It's a green. Ooh, that's kind of a fun green. I'm kind of feeling like that green is the answer. This is this kind of green over here. It's like a forest green. It's number 504 in this set. I'm obsessed with this set. It's like the perfect mix of smoky colors, and I seem to be obsessed with all my Japanese supplies. I have several things by the Kuretake company that I'm like, oh, very, very favorite. So I just knew that when I got this, I'm like, oh, I know I'm going to love this, because I have some Japanese just pigments that I can make my own paint with. I'll show you one of those. Got some over here in my drawer. These here, and these came from Choose and Keeping, an art store in London, and they're not cheap. The Kuretake Genzai Art Nouveau colors, pretty cheap compared to like this set of pigment. But when I made some of my own watercolor paints with this yummy pigment, it came out this yummy, matte, delicious, kind of in between a watercolor and a gouache look. So I kind of felt like when I read the description on this Art Nouveau set, I'm like, oh yeah, I might need all the Kuretake watercolors, because then I can save my pretty vials of pigment for photo shoots and special occasions, and I can then have plenty of yummy colors to play with here, with the ones that aren't quite so expensive and they're already made. Alright, so I'm already feeling like this one is absolutely gorgeous. These two have more color on them. This one, I'm loving that one. So I love it doing like a set, because you can already kind of look and say, okay, I'm feeling this. I kind of feel like I can see a favorite coming out of here. So we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to come back and do some mark making and stencil work on top of this. Before this dries, now that I've thought about it, I was going to use my heat gun on it, but really, because I'm filming, if you could make stuff and let it dry naturally and say come back tomorrow and start kind of adding stuff on top of it tomorrow after you've let this watercolor kind of do all the yummy things it's going to do, you will get some much better blooms and colors, and I don't know, it just is magical when you let things kind of do their own thing instead of force drying them to dry faster. What I'm doing now that I just happened to think about is before these are dry, it's not sopping wet, it's not completely dry, it's like the paper's still damp, because if it's completely dry, it doesn't quite do the same thing. So after I've let it sit here for a bit, but before it's really dry, I'm gonna just force some blooms and some color separations, because that is another form of mark making in my mind. It adds a lot of texture to your piece. It really gets the piece moving. But I do think on this one piece here, I'm going to not do it. I like what it's doing by itself, and I want to see the difference. So that's one thing to consider when you're doing that. Do you want it to have blooms and color variations and granulation? Do you want it to be more solid and less granulated? But this is a great way, just tapping in some water to get some of that extra yumminess going. Okay, so I'm going to let this dry, and then I'll be back. Alright, I have let this mostly dry. This is so gorgeous right here in this corner. And look at what these yummy blooms of color are doing. Let me pull this close. Look how gorgeous that texture and movement is in that piece. Yummy. So what I thought I would do is do some mark making, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll mark make first, and I'll just scribble on the piece of paper to get it started and kind of get you past that blank page paralysis. But when I'm scrubbing paint on here with a bamboo brush, that's almost kind of the same thing in my mind. So I'm going to go ahead and just go for it. So I love to mark make with graphite. So I'm going to be just using a random graphite pencil I've got over here. This is 12B. I also like using water-soluble graphite, and I've got some of those sitting over here. This is Faber-Castell, and I've got another brand kind of hiding up there from me, but I like things that you can squish around with water. But I'm mark making on top of this, so I'm not feeling like I need to squish it around with water, and I'm not trying to do anything specific other than add another layer of interest into our piece when you get up close and you look for it. So you may have some go-to marks that you love. Some of my favorite things are hash marks. I really love scribble, so let's just look at this. I really love scribble. And a lot of times if you're having trouble getting some more organic looking scribble, try scribbling with your non-dominant hand, because you'll have less control over the marks. I think they look better that way. I also like dash marks, where we're doing this little mark through the piece. I love that. I also like things that do like circles. So whatever it is that's your favorite mark, you know, put down on a piece of paper and put those up on your wall. And then when you get stuck, you can kind of look up and say, ooh, I love this or I love that. The other thing I really love, mark making wise, with my Posca pen is dots. I am a dot girl. So that's some options there for us to add an extra layer. And then I'm also going to do some stencil work on top of the piece, and I've got some of my favorite stencils here. I've got the Punchinella, which is my very favorite stencil, and this is the stuff that they punch sequins out of, so it's the metal mesh that's left over, so you can get Punchinella very easily. The other thing that I love is this stencil by Stencil Girl. This is stencil 376. It's got little hash marks in it. I love that one. And I also love this one. So these are the three I'm going to pull out as things that I might use. Also by Stencil Girl. And this one is, let's get it where I can read it, S227. So yummy. That's some of my very favorite ones. So I've got those options over here. And I'm going to go ahead and get my little mark making in there. And you can mark make with Posca pen, you can mark make with acrylic ink, you can mark make with a colored pencil rather than graphite. This just happens to be one of my favorite things. And like I said, you know, at the start, once you find some stuff that's your very favorite, do more of that. And you really get into more of what's your style. Oh, let's use this. I got some fusion paints at the antique market. This is one of those milk paint kind of paints, but the colors are so amazing that I thought I want to use these instead of regular paint. I mean, look at that color, but you can of course use regular paint. And I got my stencil out. I'm going to use an art sponge, and these are little sponges that are circles, and I've just cut the circle. They kind of come like this. These, and if you Google art sponge, these come up. And I just cut these into quarters because this is like the perfect sponge to stencil with. And I'm just going to dip that in the paint, and then I've got a little palette pad over here. I can just kind of get a little off if I've got it too thick. And I'm going to come through and just strategically do some stenciling. Not being real, oh, look at that. Not being real exact here, but that was super cool. And I'm going up and down on these, but you know, don't be afraid to turn your piece around and see what you're getting and see if it works better a different direction. You know, don't be afraid to play at your table. For so long, look at that. For so long, I would just sit at my art table and get mad because I wanted to create a masterpiece every time I sat down. And I have discovered, by letting go of that expectation and embracing the freedom to experiment and try out new supplies, look at that, that I am so much happier playing and making stuff at my art table, more so than I ever was in the years way before this, because I'm a little old lady, so I've been doing this a long time. Oh, look at this. Oh, this stencil is so good. I'm loving it. Just in case you missed it, it was stencil 227. Okay, I'm loving that. And then I've got plenty of these little stencils because look at this color. Thought this was pretty too. This color right here just didn't, oh, I don't even have it on there. It's called a Pot of Inspiration, but I don't have the tag on there, but it's a teal. It's real pretty. This color says Gray Champness Touch Up. So it's a yummy, yummy color. Let's do that. And then I'm going to put some gold in because I'm obsessed with the gold. And I'm just dipping that right in there. And I feel like maybe a touch of the dashes here. And again, this is stencil 376. But just experimenting and playing. Just embrace your inner child. I kind of wish I could go back to my inner 5-year-old where I didn't judge things like I do now. Oh yeah, see, it's just a touch in there. It's so subtle, but as you get closer, you can see that. Look at that. And so actually now, you know, really getting back to embracing the play, losing the tight expectations that every time I have to sit down, I got to create a masterpiece. And man, I'm telling you, I'm like the happiest painter. Just call me Bob Ross Jr. And we're going to have some happy little stencils going on in here. Look at that. And if you think I'm crazy, that's okay. You can laugh at me or laugh with me. I'm there for you. Oh, Jesus. Oh my goodness. I love it. Okay, let's see. So, and this paint is so thin when you do that. It gives really yummy dynamic stuff. But it's so thin that I can pretty quickly just go right with the next thing. So now I'm going to do the gold. This is my Kuretake gold mica paste. And I like the ink in the paste. I have it both. And what I love about this, it's got a nib. You could draw and dot with the nib if you wanted. I usually use it with a sponge and a stencil or a palette knife and get some good stuff. But I'm feeling like yummy touches of gold. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. See, when you let go of tight expectations of what you were meant to create, and if you're like not expecting a masterpiece, sometimes you end up getting a masterpiece and you didn't even try hard at it. You were like, I had some fun. That was some fun stuff today. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, I'm loving the gold. This gold is like the shiniest, most brilliant, easiest to use kind of gold. I think it's for like calligraphy work, which I like all the calligraphy stuff to paint with apparently, along with my Japanese art supplies that I'm obsessed with. So try using supplies in a way that really it wasn't intended to be used. Look at that. Okay, you know what else we could do? Now that I've been talking about it, the gold mica ink, also my favorite. We can come back in here and do a little bit of some junk writing. I got my favorite Kakamori brass nib. I also have a yummy regular nib, so you can use anything you want to do on that. But I like this nib because it lets you do circles if circles is your thing. So we could come in here, put a circle in here. Oh yeah. Oh my goodness. All right, let's do some more circling here. Just to add a little touch of something, maybe some dots over here. And, you know, with pieces like this, what I really love about it is, you know, when you're doing really big, important pieces, you're always thinking, oh no, where do I stop? Am I going to, if I do this one more thing, am I going to ruin it? You get to where you're afraid to do the next step because you're like, oh, I love it right here. It doesn't feel finished. But am I going to ruin it if I add something else to it? And sometimes when you get to that point, you need to just stop and put things down and like not get upset with where it's at. I'm going to grab, I have a great big wood ruler here. And what I love doing is when I've got pieces that are wet that maybe I don't want to stick my hand on, but I need to work on a piece over here because I didn't think very well working this way to this way. This is just a big paint stick from the paint store. You could use a yardstick. You could use just a long stick. Give yourself, your hand, something to set on when you kind of want to come back and do some marks or some work and you're not wanting to put your hand on your art. So I keep this handy. These are the perfect way to test out ideas. Do some stuff before you're thinking, oh, I don't want to do that, I might ruin it. These kind of get you out of that mindset because, you know, you're not trying to create some masterpiece. You're just trying to create and you're like, oh, what did I get? You know, it's more exciting when you're not afraid to mess it up. Because I'm not stopping to look at these and think, oh, what else should I do? I'm moving fairly fast. I'm like, oh, let's do this and see what we get. This is the way you narrow down what you love. This is how I know I like to cut things up. I like to work on larger foursomes and then see what I get. Ooh, see now this one, maybe we could come in here with some writing. And really, looky here, let me just get the regular dip pen out. See this right here, now we can test out like a regular, like some little bit of writing. And just see the dip pen like this can give you a tighter finish, so it's not so big and obvious, so I kind of like that. It's just something you'll see when the light hits it maybe and you're thinking, ooh, what does that say? Just adding a little bit of interest. Now this is the point that I think, is there anything else I want to do? We could take a look and evaluate. I like to peel the tape at this point because you can always add to this later. So let's just see what we got, because I'm feeling pretty good about that. I'm feeling real good about that one. Let's just see what we ended up with. If you have problems with your tape sticking to your paper, because the cotton papers peel pretty easily for me, and this is a painter's tape that I got from the paint store. I also use artist tape, which is low tack tape that'll let you peel your piece. If you're having trouble with the paper grabbing the tape, take your heat gun and heat the tape up, and that will help the tape release from your paper. I find that I have more trouble with student grade papers or papers that aren't 100% cotton because they've got that wood pulp in them, and that wood pulp just grabs that tape. Okay, here we go. We're getting there. Oh, I'm very excited about this set. These are gorgeous. Look at this. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Feel like it's my birthday. I'm opening my present. Let me move this lid out of the way. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Oh, look at these. Oh, these are so gorgeous. Now, this one, definitely in love with, and we can turn it around and see, does it work better in any other direction? Kind of feeling like it looks good this way also, so I love that one. And then if I were going to sign it, I'd just sign it like in the bottom right hand corner, whichever direction I wanted it to go, because you know, if you take a piece of abstract art to the framer, I guarantee you 100% of the time they're going to frame it upside down from what you had envisioned was the right side up. I had that happen. I even told the framer wrong once because I was put on the spot and I'm like, oh, I do it this way. And then I got it home and I'm like, that's upside down. So if you'll take a pencil, sign the corner that you like, the way you like it to go, it'll definitely be framed correctly. Look at this. Look at this. Now sometimes I will admit that I like them the way I painted them. All 4 of these are gorgeous. Check it out. Check it out. Okay, so I actually like all 4 of these. I'm not disappointed. I love the colors. If I were going to do like some up and down, these 2 feel pretty good like that. These 2 feel really good like this. I could do all 4 in this direction, and that feels really good too. So I hope you enjoyed watching this intuitive paint session. I can't wait to see if you create some of those. So definitely come back and share with me. If you love these videos, follow my channel, and then you'll see when I post some more. All right, so I'll see you next time.